Anyway, speaking of no notice, would you like to just jump right into this past week's Smackdown?
This can't be too long, right? This can't be.
Of course not, because it basically as the bloodline turns with matches in between. But again, it's working. They're doing monster numbers just for people to know, I guess, as soon as they can. They don't want it spoiled later on, or they don't want somebody to know before them who's on whose side and what's going to happen next in the bloodline. Is there anything else going on here on this program that you can point to explain why their numbers are up in the hundreds of thousands of viewers per week from what they were just a few months ago?
People care about the storylines. That's why.
But then there's only one storyline.
They care about the one storyline. I mean, there are people getting over it. I mean, the LA Knight thing is getting bigger by the week. But beyond that, it's the one storyline that you laid it out perfectly, I think, last week. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and then you get the big crescendo, and that's what's happening.
Well, on the crescendo this week, they opened up SmackDown for June 23rd with a VTR package of the Bloodline blow-up last week, and the Usos kicking Roman on his ass, and then here come the Usos. And they get a big pop, and they're over now more. This has worked. They're over now more than I think they have been that I've been seeing. They're chanting Uso, and they've got the Uso signs, and everybody's feeling Usy. The only thing that didn't feel Usy was this promo to me. Before I go into detail, did you seem that this meandered around and people liked it, but it beat around a lot of bush?
I mean, it wasn't direct and to the point. It would have been 10 seconds if it was that.
I guess they didn't know what to talk about.
I mean, I don't think they were in the ring until what? I don't think they were in the ring with the mics until 7 minutes in, 8 minutes in.
Probably.
So, I mean, it took them a while just to get to the ring.
But the package was at the start also, so that got us hooked. But they are... Jimmy and Jay, to me, when they're doing live promos and they pause to let the fans react, they don't pause and let the fans react in a way that like a Cody does or a Punk does. It kind of looks like when they pause and let the fans react that they just kind of forgot what they were going to say, and they just want the fans there. It's an abrupt shut off. And they're trying to go back and forth, with some of the verbiage, but the thing was they're about to fight their family, and they're not supposed to do that because family's supposed to take up for each other. But we got to do this now because Roman didn't take up for us, but we still love Roman, but he messed up by disrespecting us. They fired up at the end, and talking about they can always forgive Roman because he's family, but they can't forgive Heyman. And at some point, that'll play into something. But I thought this meandered and beat around a lot of bush, even though they finished strong on the tag team match this weekend. They didn't have a lot to say that was revelatory or needed relating that we didn't already know up until they got to that point. We're 15 minutes into the program.
This is one of those weeks where there's no Roman, and those are different weeks than the ones where you have him. I'm not even saying him wrestling, just him appearing on the show. So it's almost like a step back and a stall week. Let's progress some things, but not everything. Wouldn't it be funny if Heyman accuses them of being anti-Semitic? That's why these guys don't like me. No, this really...
Because he could be painted as a rabid anti-Samoanite.
Well, there you go. This was a fine opening. You knew there was going to be something more later, and if you watched the show, you knew it would probably be at the last segment. So it was fine. It established something will happen at the end. They're mad at Solo.
Well, at least we know who they're mad at.
And Heyman. Now they really hate Heyman.
But now they used to win, like every once in a while. I remember when I was a young man, when I was just a young lad, my father would never miss an episode of Gunsmoke on CBS television. And every once in a while, Matt Dillon would leave town. Marshall Dillon would leave town, and all kinds of shit would happen while he was gone.
He'd be negotiating his contract.
Well, he would be off on hunting a desperate fugitive. But shit would happen while he was gone. And then somehow Festus or Newly or Doc or Kitty or Sam or all of those people would all get together and mostly solve the thing by the time that he got back. So Roman doesn't have to be there every week. But, you know,
isn't it amazing that Heyman managing the Samoan SWAT team in '89 is a part of the biggest angle in professional wrestling in years?
That's good. It certainly wasn't part of the biggest angle in wrestling in 1989. I'll tell you that.
What, the Marietta Massacre? That wasn't the biggest angle of '89?
Anyway, but moving on in SmackDown, LA Knight versus Rey Mysterio. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to beat the shit out of LA Knight again. And we know how that's been going, but he continues to get a big reaction. And so I watched this match, and Rey is a genius in that almost exclusively now the heels open up strong on him so he can fight from underneath. And then he'll give him a tease, he'll give him a move and a tease of another move, but they'll shut him down. So he gives the fans a little bit at a time, but he's always fighting from underneath. And then finally, when he makes his big comeback, you know, it's brilliant because he's smaller, he's older, he's a legend, but he's got the trademark moves and he knows how to put it together. It's brilliant. And he's still got new shit, like the baseball slide splash out on the floor, which is, I guess, technically safer and less wear and tear on your body than a fucking dive. But since nobody else does it, it looked great, whereas everybody's doing these dives. But anyway, a good match. Both guys are pros. Everything was right there in place. LA Knight, like I said, was in control most of the match, but Rey would have hope spots and fire up and then made the final big comeback. Beautiful high cross body. They got a "This is awesome" chant lightly from the crowd. And they went back and forth with a couple of 2 counts. And then Rey goes for the 619. LA Knight foils it by grabbing him. And they jockey back and forth. And LA Knight traps him and gives him his finish. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, wow. LA Knight has gone from not being able to beat Howie the mailroom guy to just beating Rey Mysterio with his finish 1, 2, 3. So maybe somebody has realized something.
This is one of those cases. The fans are reacting to someone who just happens to be really, really good at what he's doing. I just saw a clip because I never watch Impact or TNA or anything because it's awful. But it was from when you were there, and it was him, I guess, as Eli Drake, and I think it may have been Chris Masters or someone. They come into your office. Yeah. And they want to change their number from number 1 in whatever the match was.
Some Rumble type situation.
And you change it to number 2. He was great in that. I'm watching it. He's got like those fucking eyes. Like, what do you mean you don't have Mountain Dew? Like, he's got those fucking, like, he bugs out. And you believe that he's this tweaked out wrestler. He's great. I'm such a fan of LA Knight. He's the highlight of that show that isn't the Bloodline.
And that's, he's got the movements and he's got the facials and he's animated and he can talk. He's got a line of bullshit. And, once again, is he ready to, replace Londos or Longson on the all-time box office attraction list? Maybe not, but look at the fucking current crop we've got today in every company. You can't mean to tell me he's not in the upper percentile of something.
And if you have fan reactions like that, you have to ride that wave, don't you?
You got to surf it. You got to surf. Well, you ought to know that Hawaiian, Brian. You know the surfer lingo.
I said ride that wave, and then you got to surf it.
Yeah. You got to hang 10. I don't even have to go to Hawaii to hang 10. I can just stand here and smile.
Buddy.
Anyway, so then LA Knight tried to pop Rey Mysterio's hood off, but Pablo Escobar ran in and ran him off. That's what happened. And then in the back, I wrote, Solo spiked some guy. And then I realized it was Ridge Holland.
I had the same reaction. I was like, man, this is A cool idea, but it's just some generic bald wrestler in the back like we've never seen before. Until Sheamus came out, I had no idea it was Ridge Holland. I thought it was
that's because we're used to seeing him with his fucking Dickens-like fucking cap and the suspenders and the jeans and the, is that a coal miner's outfit from Wales or whatever the brawling brutes wear? But yeah, so he ran into Ridge Holland in the back and took exception to him and spiked him. And Ridge did a great job of selling it, coughing. You're supposed to, your windpipe, right? Would be what that would affect. So Sheamus found out about it and got really pissed off and went out into the arena and told everybody that he's calling Solo out for a bleeding fight later on. So later on, we're going to have a bleeding fight. But right now, we got a bleeding girls tag team match.
I wouldn't put it like that.
I guess it... Well, now, we don't know.
Don't put it like that. No.
We do not have any evidence to make any assumption. It's just a figure of speech is what it is from across the pond.
That's right.
Of course, there is 4 girls in this, and there's 4 weeks in a month. You got a 25% chance. All right, before I do any more Steiner math.
Yes.
So this was for the women's tag team title because both of these teams were champions. Ronda and Shayna were the champions of one show, and the other team, Earth and Fire, wind was off this particular evening. They were the champions of the other show, so they're going to unify the belts. And basically, Ronda and Shayna tapped both the baby faces out at the same time and won the belts. And they just brought Earth and Fire up from developmental anyway, so that was quick. And then Ronda, but at least we don't have to worry about there being a dispute in the women's tag team division because now it's unified. So now they're going to have to come up with another women's tag team title to put on the women's tag teams that work all the time rather than just part of the time. But then Ronda called Raquel out because she wants a rematch for the tag team title with her and Liv, who lost the tag team title to Ronda and Shayna. And then Liv came out, and they had a big 4-way face-off. Nothing happened, but they just faced off. And the only other thing I noticed was Liv Morgan was wearing heels, and she was the same height as Ronda and Shayna, while Raquel was wearing heels, and she was a foot taller than everybody in the ring.
And that was the tallest I've ever seen Liv Morgan.
And it's again, she was on stilts to be even with Ronda and Shayna in wrestling boots. And then Raquel, who's taller than everybody, is wearing heels. So she looks like Andrea, the Lady Giant.
And they were just teasing Raquel and Rhea on Monday.
Which is where we were hoping they would go because that might look interesting. Now we got Liv Morgan back in this thing and her tiny little minute, microscopic, microbiotic ass.
What? You're too much sometimes.
The fuck? Well, god damn, you need a microscope just to see her fucking face.
She's not that small.
She's tiny, is what she is. She's an amoeba.
This is your show.
She's a microbe. She's a small, minute particle. She's a particle is what she is. All right. On SmackDown also, they went wallering with Grayson. And he had as his guest Purely Deadly. And I wrote not a fucking chance. This ridiculous alleged personality with his fake talk show and the overblown introduction. This doesn't get heat when nobody cares about this guy to begin with. Again, there's a reason why major names in wrestling hosted alleged talk segments. It's because they were big names. You don't just give a guy a talk segment and it makes him a big name. And these two, they're dressed however the fuck they ought to be on Let's Make a Deal. I did see that the street sweepers came out singing and howling about halfway through this and just got in the ring, and they went to the break, and when they came back, they were having a match. So this segment went 10 minutes across the top of the hour, and then that would have run, I would think, most people off, and then they came back with a tag team match with the Street Sweepers and Grizzly Death, and that would have run the rest of them off. What'd you think?
I didn't watch any of this stuff. I think
It ran you off.
Yeah, this stuff has to go back to Sean's NXT. I don't like it.
Okie dokie. But up next, Charlotte versus Lacey Evans. And now, apparently, the only thing that we have been told as to why that they want to take Lacey Evans out behind the barn and old yeller her is that she's apparently one of these nuts that can't stop putting her foot in her mouth on social media, either saying autism is fake or vaccines cause leprosy, or I would think even being a right-wing lunatic in that company because of Vince and his friends, you wouldn't get too much heat, but apparently she's got heat for being off kilter in some fashion, because this wasn't just a squash. This was Charlotte she looked incredible. She's looks like a fucking star. Her shit's great, but Lacey was selling everything big, and she was trying to put everything into her performance. She's got great heel facials, even though she shook a kid's hand when she came out and then told all the rest of the fans to salute her. So that's a mixed message. But this was not even a squash match. This was a squash match where the star was showing how little effort it took. Did you catch that? She was playing with her. Even on the quick matches on this program, they don't often, except if it's just some guy we've never heard of, the already in the ring character. They don't often have somebody beaten quickly and the person doing it making fun of how easy it is. But on this one, they did. So what the fuck is maybe Lacey needs to go to All Friends Wrestling if she can make any friends.
Yeah, it's going to be a story one day. Just what the hell was going on with this Lacey Evans push, stop, gimmick change? What the hell?
Wait a minute. Push, stop.
Actually,
stop. Gimmick change.
Do you remember when
Hammer time.
Wasn't she feuding with Charlotte when she got pregnant and had to leave because they were doing a thing where Ric Flair was into her?
That's right.
I just remembered that.
Like, what, 5 years ago or something? Oh, my God. All right. Well, anyway, Charlotte figure-eighted her with the legitimate offense that Lacey Evans got was she stopped Charlotte and missed a flip. and Charlotte took back over. Oh, my God. But then after the match, Oscar came in and kicked Charlotte and got heat on her, and Lacey Evans limped off. Do you remember the days when if a heel came in to get heat on a babyface that they were shooting an angle or he's working a program with after the babyface had beaten some other heel, the other heel would stick around and help just out of principle and, heels stick together? Even if it was a job guy, the heel got a chance to get some fucking, he'd go. And then that was somebody that when the save came, that you could feed for a fucking bump and the top heel would go on and bail out no contact. Now the defeated heel just accepts their punishment and walks dejectedly back to the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. So main event time. And I was scared of this one, Brian, because Solo Sikoa versus Sheamus, they rang the bell with 20 minutes left on the air. And I'm thinking, my God, I hope they're not going to go 20 minutes in this match. Before we talk about the match, did you notice all night they were saying the Cajun Dome in Louisiana? We're at the Cajun Dome in Louisiana. And that's another, I heard that Vince was changing matches and pulling segments, and that's another Vince thing. As I remember my geography, the Cajun Dome is in Lafayette, Louisiana. Is it not? What town were they in? The specific city in the state of Louisiana were they in?
I believe it's in Lafayette, but I don't know if they said that on the show.
Exactly, because Vince he doesn't want to say the name of a fucking town that he thinks sounds podunk or too small to host a national television program. So everybody has to jump through hoops to figure out some kind of way to write the chyron, the identifier where we are, the graphic, or to say it. And sometimes he likes the name of the arena, or didn't they do Greater New York or the New York metropolitan area for someplace in New Jersey or something?
There was something like that. I was going to say upstate New York. There was something like that.
But the point is, if he thinks so the Cajun Dome sounds great, but why does Lafayette, Louisiana have that much heat, right? It's a fucking recognized town. They're big enough to have the Cajun Dome. Seems like they could have a TV show, but that's another Vinceism. When you see the town not identified that they're in, Vince don't like it. Anyway, speaking of not liking something, they worked hard. They started hot. They kept it up. They went back and forth. There was no long heat or big major comebacks or whatever. It was good, stiff stuff. But did you like the match?
I'm not a big Sheamus guy, and I like Solo when he's used more as an enforcer or maybe a tag team partner. It was all right, I guess. I didn't particularly love it. I'm not going to watch it again ever.
A lot of flat-footed kicking and punching. But anyway, the finish was basically Solo spiked Sheamus, and he took the bump through the ropes to the floor, and so that way he couldn't be pinned in the ring. But Solo goes out and rock bottoms him on the desk, and then sets him sitting down in front of the barricade, and gets a running charge and turns around and gives him the ass in the face through the barricade. And the referee immediately calls it. He says, Sheamus is out. He's not able to continue. The doctors come and check on him. The agents are out there immediately. Think of what we've seen done to people. And think of how long they've sold it down like they were fucking dead. Like they were ready to be laid out and have words spoken over them. And it takes however long for the referee to catch up. Hey, this guy might not be breathing anymore, but this guy takes an ass in the face and boom. So, okay. But they got to get a reason to get the Usos out there. So as Solo is trying to fight the doctors off from helping Sheamus, Usos music plays and they get a big pop. And here they come, and each of them hits a super kick on Solo and then a double super kick. And they leave Solo flat, and they menace Heyman. And he somehow manages to get off the ring and out without tipping it over and get out of there. And then they kick Solo again and give him a double splash off the opposite top turnbuckles. So poor Solo took the brunt of that. But the Usos are back in town. And that's where we went off the air.
What do you think? Was that a satisfactory ending to this episode of SmackDown?
Well, they're promoting a tag team match, and one of the guys wasn't there. And I know the limitations with Roman, but that is a problem when your biggest star in the company doesn't make all the TVs, and the main event of the pay-per-view, for all intents and purposes, the main event of Money in the Bank is this tag team match. And, so the two baby faces got to beat up one heel. But yeah, okay. But I mean, they can't all be winners. It wasn't the revelation of a bloodline defection or shocking, turn of events, but you can't do that every week or it becomes obviously normal. So this was what it was. Yeah.
What is Roman doing? I mean, we heard that he wanted to go to Hollywood. Has he gone to Hollywood? Is he making anything? Where is he?
Yeah, he's there. He's got an apartment now on Wilshire Boulevard. He's just hanging out, goes to the pool a lot every day. I don't know what he's fucking doing. It's not my week to watch him. But if he's not actively acting in a movie, it seems like he ought to be at TV every week. And it seems like they could afford, now that they're worth $9 billion, to fucking pay him to be at TV every week, doesn't it?
You would think if he's pulling in the numbers that he's pulling in, they would want that there as often as possible.
Yeah, well, you've raised a good statement there, though, or a good question. In term, yes, we understand why when The Rock was shooting all these movies, he couldn't come back and be on, or was Cena or Austin at one point or whatever, but Roman, I want to do a lot of things, but since I'm not able to, I'm right here talking to you. So I'm wondering what Roman's doing that he can't come to TV all the time. Okay, let's say he got a deal that says I only have to make X amount of dates. Well, now that every time he shows up, the ratings go through the roof, wouldn't you be talking to him about some more fucking dates?
Maybe his agent says that he has to meet all these famous casting directors or all these big casting directors on a Friday afternoon and evening.
Well, that's why he always gets to the show when it's about an hour and a half over with. That's why he's always late, but he's still there. When they pull up for a live television show at 9:30 and the show goes off the air at 10 o'clock, is that not some kind of tip-off that it was prearranged? Because after all, with traffic, you never know.
That was Smackdown.
What do you know, Brian? What do you know? What does the Arcadian Vanguard family of podcasts know? What's going on this week?
Another fine week of programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, the wrestling news. Every day, get your free wrestling daily newscast every morning. Wake up and find out everything that's happened. No opinion, no conjecture, no star ratings, just the wrestling news. Get it today wherever you find your favorite podcast. Look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News, or get it directly from thewrestlingnews.com. A few other notes. This week, coming up on Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry, their guest will be Dottie Curtis. Coming off her appearance on Dark Side of the Ring, hear more stories about the classic days of championship wrestling from Florida. Eddie Graham, Don Curtis, and so much more. At BaldwinPod.com, or look for Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership! Go through the archives today at 605pod.com. They're available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership.